Welcome, welcome, welcome back to Truth Quest. My name is Aaron Moriarity. I will be your host, and we're going to go on a quest for truth together. Yes. How are you doing, friends? I'm doing just fine over here in Wisconsin. Our state Supreme Court has overruled the governor's overreaching stay-at-home law, the house arrest law that a lot of these states are under. And so the businesses aren't open quite yet, but I think they're starting to. However, I think they're going to require masks and distancing and all this nonsense. I cannot wait till we get back to normal life and something not so intrusive. Now, the president did mention that he's mobilizing the military to deliver the vaccine, which they're anticipating will be ready by fall. Of course, a vaccine for a very mild flu is not a good thing. But President Trump has mentioned hydroxychloroquine and zinc as a vaccine. So whether they develop a vaccine, an injectable vaccine or not, a vaccine does not have to be injectable. Remember, you can take it by mouth, liquid, or a pill. So that's the route I would like to go. And maybe they will have an injectable one, and maybe they'll give you a choice. I can't imagine that there'll be any kind of mandate from something that President Trump is initiating. So don't worry too much about that. I think it's going to be just fine. Hydroxychloroquine with zinc works great. It's worked great for 50 years on these type of viruses, and every doctor who uses it has great results. The only reason that they're saying that it's no good is because, number one, Trump mentioned it, and the big pharma is not going to make a lot of money on it. And this big push, they want to make a lot of money. So it's really quite sad. But hang in there, folks. We're going to get back to sanity soon, I feel, and get rid of this nonsense. Now, I want to talk to you a bit about William Tompkins, one of my favorite things to talk about. Now, William Tompkins, we've talked about him a lot here. He was this 94-year-old aerospace designer, engineer who came forward, bravely came forward a few years back and wrote this book, Selected by Extraterrestrials. And it's a great book, and I highly recommend it. And so he was in these think tanks at Douglas, TRW, lots of places, Lockheed. He worked at all of them. But he started off at Douglas, and he worked for the Navy as well. So he designed miles-long spacecraft for the Navy in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that were built and deployed by the 1980s by the Solar Warden program. And we'll show you some of the ships that he designed that are actually in space right now since the 80s, patrolling our solar system, along with Radiant Guardian. Solar Warden and Radiant Guardian handle the whole solar system. But one of the things that we got, along with Project Paperclip, after World War II, we got thousands of scientists and engineers from Germany. They came over here secretly, and they weren't, there was actually a law against Nazis coming here, but the CIA, they like to do things on their own terms. So, and the military-industrial complex. So they brought these folks over, and they continued all the things that they were doing in Nazi Germany, like rocket development, mind control experiments, terrible stuff. But another thing that we inherited there were 4,400 people that the Nazis discovered before their demise that were just ordinary people, and 4,400 people, and they all got these visions, and they had this inclination to build a giant spaceship to leave this planet and go somewhere else. Now, why were they getting these messages? And some of them were shoemakers, just ordinary people. They were mortgaging their houses, buying up all kinds of metals and different things to make these ships out of. Well, the Nazis, they caught wind of these people, and they got them, and they put them in underground bases in hollowed out mountains and underground bases to work for them to build these craft. Well, we got some of those people when got this stuff, the paperclip, all these scientists from Nazi Germany. We also got these civilians that kept on working on this stuff. And at the secret think tank, they had access to the things that they were working on and the concepts they were working on, all kinds of electromagnetic propulsions, all kinds of exotic things that they were getting these messages from, just like William Tompkins was getting messages from extraterrestrials to help build this. And they were questioning, why are we getting these? Why would they come halfway across the universe to come here to hide, to influence us to build this stuff? There must be some ulterior motive, and they're always trying to figure out what exactly they're up to, why they're doing this. But they were, and that's what helped us achieve this miraculous development by the 1980s to have miles-long spacecraft cruising around in our solar system. And now I took some of William Tompkins' sketches and I digitized them into what they might have looked like as operational craft, and I'll be showing those to you here. But it's an incredible book. There's a lot that he goes over, and it's very, very interesting. He is a very interesting character, and thank goodness that he did come forward. He's an American hero, and we really should remember him, and we need to write our Congress people and say, hey, look, we know about this guy. The Navy gave him permission. The Navy gave him permission to come forward with all this information. So obviously some people want this out on the inside. They want this out into the public. So spread it around, folks. Share this far and wide, and all my other shows that cover William Tompkins. People need to know this stuff because we've got spaceships cruising around in our galaxy, in our 12-star cluster and our 52-star cluster, all over. We've got colonies, we've got mining bases. It's incredible. To get the raw materials to build all this stuff, they go to asteroids, and they'll send sometimes a robotic crew to bore into the asteroid, and they mine it from the inside out. They hollow it out, and it's incredible. Now, our asteroid belt used to be a planet, and this gets talked about by lots of people. And so it blew up. One of its moons was Mars, and that became a planet. It got shot into this area and became a planet. It was a moon of Maldak, or Tiamat, is what the asteroid belt used to be, a giant super Earth. And it was inhabited, so was its moon, which is now Mars. And apparently both races on the moon, the Mars, which was their moon, and the super Earth, they developed rather rapidly because they were so close to each other, and they were friends at first, but they did end up warring. And that is what some people think is why it resulted in our asteroid belt. Now, in the secret space program, there was a very sophisticated computer program called Brilliant Pebbles. And what it did was it took all of the asteroid movement around the asteroid belt, every single piece, and its trajectory and where it was going, and they reversed it back in time to the planet where it was one. So they've got actual computer program evidence that this was a planet. And of course, all of the water that was on the planet, that became comets. That's where the comets come from. And so very interesting. Very, very interesting. And apparently on some of the chunks is technology or different things from this ancient civilization. So very fascinating. So William Tompkins, he's a fantastic person, and we'll be talking about him again in the near future. But right now I want to talk again about Andrew Basiago. Andrew Basiago is a private lawyer, but when he was a youngster, he was in a DARPA program that his father got him into called Project Pegasus. And we've talked about this before too, and you might know about Andrew Basiago. Look him up. Watch his videos. He's a very intelligent man. He's Cambridge educated, and he was a child participant in Project Pegasus. Now, he claims that by 1970, DARPA, they developed many different forms of teleportation, or actually one, and time travel, many different forms of time travel. Now, some of them were remote viewing, which is, of course, is non-technical. Another one was the chronovisor, and we've talked about this before. Armedi and Gemelli, two Jesuit priests, they were working with Gregorian chants in the 40s, and they were using sound equipment, and they accessed a sound from the past. One of their fathers said, "My little zucchini," and he had already passed at that time. So they knew they were onto something. They brought it to the Pentagon. This was in the 40s. And they developed it out by 1952 into almost like a television screen apparatus where you could lens in the sound and the visuals of past events. So by 1952 they had that. And Andrew's father, and a researcher pointed this out, they found his name on a patent for an 8-sided bismuth crystal, which, when mounted in the ceiling of the lab and the chronovisor was lensed towards it, it would propagate a holographic, three-dimensional holographic image of that past event in the lab. And you could enter it and immerse yourself into that past event. And when the propagation stopped, you're just right there. You're still in the lab. So you're going there, you're kind of bringing the event to the lab to witness it. Very fascinating. Very, very fascinating. They were always instructed not to look up at that crystal. It was very bright, and you could damage your eyes. One girl, these were youngsters, there was 140 kids in this program throughout the U.S., she looked up at it and she was instantly blinded. So it's very dangerous stuff. Yeah, the chronovisor, it's an incredible, incredible thing. You can see past or future events. And we've talked about this before. But they sent him back to Ford's Theater to try and see who killed Abraham Lincoln, because some people think it might have been his wife, because she had a single-shot Derringer in her purse. But he could never get up there in time to the balcony to see exactly who pulled the trigger. He went back 5 or 6 times, and each time things were a little bit different. and they decided that they weren't getting good enough information, so they decided not to send people more than once to the same event after that. Now, Bernie Mendez is another person. We talked about him before, and he was hired by Nixon to investigate this. There's another fella that was in the program with Andrew, and that was Brett Stillings. Now, Brett was in the Mars Jump Room program, and he had to remind Andrew about the Mars Jump Room because Andrew couldn't remember it, but after he was talking to Brett for a while, the memories came back. And that happened in the early 80s out on the West Coast. He took a course at the College of Siskiyous in Weed, California, and they studied Mars, and his instructor in that class was none other than Ed Dames. Yes, the same Ed Dames who was the remote viewer. Now, he has been confronted about this and denied it. But again, this is a very highly top secret thing. He might not be able to talk about that, but curious that he's never mentioned it. He did talk on Coast to Coast AM about technical remote viewing. Well, technical remote viewing is using technology. He didn't mention what the technology was, but that's what the chronovisor was. It was a technology for viewing, remote viewing in time. So that's very interesting. Another method was the plasma confinement, which Dr. Sterling Colgate developed of the Colgate Company. It was a clear glass or plexiglass chamber with it was fairly long, and there was a line. And once you passed that line, there was this plasma which was confined to one area, a kind of pink and blue, kind of floating plasma blobs, like fog almost. And when you walked into that, you would instantly start wormholing through a hole. A wormhole would open under your feet, and you'd violently be wormholed to that past event that was dialed in. And that's how he was sent to Gettysburg. And he walked to Gettysburg. His dad told him, they sent him outside of town, about a half-hour walk from town, and he said, as soon as you see someone, his father told him, Andy, as soon as you see someone, ask them, hey friend, which way Gettysburg? And he did that when he saw a soldier, and the soldier stood up and he went, and he walked that way until he got there. And when he got into town, his teeth were chattering because his shoes were wrenched off in the wormholing along with his jacket. And this shoe cobbler, about a 70-year-old man, said, hey, what are you doing, young man? We got a president coming. We can't have you walking around in the cold like this. He got his skeleton key out, and he got into this merchant shop of men's clothing and shoes and hats and things. And he got him a jacket and some shoes, which later he found out might have been for the Underground Railroad. Because a woman came in, must have been one of the proprietors of the shop, and she was arguing with him, why are we giving this to this boy? But Andrew found out who that gentleman was and researched him and found out he was at age 69, he enlisted to fight at Gettysburg. So he was a war hero and limping from an injury that he had. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. So, now Brett Stillings, when he told Andrew about the Mars Jump Room and reminded him about that, they also were there with Barry Soetoro, a.k.a. Barack Hussein Obama. His name was Barry Soetoro. And Brett Stillings says that he claims that he's from a different timeline. That the timeline he is from was a timeline where the Twin Towers did not fall down on 9/11. And only one building was hit, but it didn't fall. And he said that timeline was a better timeline, he was assuming. And he wanted to get back to it, but he's stuck in this one. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Wouldn't you say? I would say. So Brett Stillings. Now, something happened at one of the talks that Andrew Basiago was giving in recent years. You can see it. It's his 6-hour video, if you can watch all the way through that. But at one point, there's a woman in the audience that was also was in a program through DARPA using the Montauk chair. Now that's another time travel technology that they had. It was a chair from an extraterrestrial craft that they had received or gotten, or maybe they shot down, who knows, but they had this chair. And behind the back, kind of like right about here on the back of the chair, there was like an emblem. And when you leaned back, that emblem somehow had some connection to the nerves in your back. And what happens is you experience events in your future when you're in this chair, because these craft go so fast that when you are driving these spacecraft, these alien spacecraft, they're going so fast you have to anticipate where they're going, so the pilot can see into the future and avoid things, an asteroid coming. But DARPA used this to explore moments in whoever was sitting in the chair, moments in their future, but not necessarily the same timeline. So it's very confusing. But he experienced, while in the chair, he experienced seeing himself or being himself as president of the United States, and he was declassifying all this technology, like the Tesla teleporter, Tesla vortal teleportation, which was really the first technology that he was exposed to, which was also a time travel, had some time travel capabilities. Very interesting. The Tesla vortal teleporter was an incredible thing. They built it from Tesla's papers. He called it an energetic array. When they turned it on, there was 2 booms coming up about 6 or 8 feet from the ground, and there was this almost like TV roster, like the old TVs, that fuzzy stuff that you see. He said it looked like little blue-green worms squiggling back and forth. And they jumped through this thing, found themselves in an oblique, triangle-shaped tunnel, blue, white, lit up, and then they found footfall. They were in New Jersey. They found footfall in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in about 3 seconds. So this technology, and his dad wanted to bring this technology to the people to be used for transportation and shipping, which would be a great thing. Still, imagine if that would have happened in 1970 or early 70s. That would have been a very big boom to our situation where we find ourselves right now, which we really are kind of in the 70s. A lot of our stuff is not technologically where it should be. And I think partly because a lot of the smartest people have been siphoned off into the secret space program to develop their colonies and their ventures out in space. So we've really been gypped, folks. We've not been told about this secret space program that's developed all these technologies and colonies on Mars and throughout the solar system and even our 12-star cluster and beyond, and in Lagrange points. And a Lagrange area is an area in the solar system that is kind of a neutral gravity area where they can have like a space station that's stationary and it's not getting a lot of pull from anything either in any direction. These are called Lagrange points. So they have some of these colonies or space stations are in these Lagrange areas that have, this neutral gravity area. They're kind of like little hiding spots from the gravity in our solar system. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. So, Andrew Basiago, his story is amazing. You got to see his video. Watch it. I mean, it hasn't had that many views, but it is very interesting, and he's done lots of interviews. He's going to be running for president again, I think, in 2024, I believe. And he ran in 2016, although he wasn't on the ballot. He was a write-in candidate. And so maybe he'll be president, maybe not. We don't know. His CIA handler told him last time he asked, well, maybe you might not get there, but you get close. So we'll see. Who knows what timeline we're on, right? Anyway, today they unveiled the Space Force flag. And that's a pretty exciting thing. So the Space Force is going forward, and the president keeps hinting, he keeps saying things like, ooh, we're developing all kinds of, new technologies. But we all know what they're really doing is they're going to bring forward technologies we've had for a long time, but have just been kept secret from the population. And we need to know these things. And so write your congressman or call them or email them. We're in the digital age now. Email them and let them know, hey, we want this technology. We want the Jetsons lifestyle that we've been gypped out of. And we want to know about this. We want to, say hello to our cousins who've been living generations in space. They don't even know life is here on Earth. They've been told that life doesn't exist on Earth anymore, just like we're told there is no life anywhere. Although we have our people out there. And according to Corey Goode, trading with over 900 different races of extraterrestrials. So that's phenomenal. Now, they don't want this out. These people who control this do not want this information out. So it's up to us to spread the word far and wide. So share this with your friends, family, and anyone who's interested or curious about this kind of stuff. I want to leave you with reminding you to get this book, Selected by Extraterrestrials. It really should be a movie. Maybe it will be someday. Let's hope so. And now you might have noticed behind me over here, this right here, what this is a book I illustrated. And it was actually endorsed by Jeff Foxworthy because the books help the children's hospitals. But they're very nice books. They're colorful, very colorful, and printed right here in the United States at Warzella Publishing in Wisconsin. And just beautiful colors. It was written by Judy Johnson, Green Bay, and illustrated by myself here in Door County. So it's a great little book. And actually there's another book, Popple's Place. Now, Popple is about a little boy who has no friends. He wants a friend really bad. He sits on a rock all day. And his aunt says, he wants to go in the woods to try and make some friends. But his aunt says, oh no, there's scary creatures out there. So he goes in anyway. And he meets some very fancy, interesting, and friendly characters. But they all decide, you know what, we can't be a friend with the people. There's Sammy the Squirrel. But in the end, the wise old owl, Ollie, the owl, here he is, decides, you know what, he's not a people, he's a popple. We can be friends with this kid. It's a great non-prejudice story. And in Popple's place, the critters build him his own little house in the woods because when his aunt leaves, he has no place to go. So now he has a place in the woods to go. It's a very, very nice little story. Excellently written and illustrated by myself. So that's what's behind me over here. That's what that is. So that mystery is solved. Well, friends, thank you again for stopping by. Spread the word. This is Aaron Moriarity signing off. Peace in.